Has become the one that suffered a historic humbling at home and at the hands of a team inspired by a former gunner. Spurs fans, a hellish half hour starts here. A hellish half hour, nothing new there, some may say. But I say, better the devil you know and all that. So stay with us here on Fox Sports as we're about to deliver a lively Champions League themed show. And here are the main talking points. Ruthless versus reckless. How two teams heading in different directions somehow delivered that amazing scoreline. And can Salzburg's goal machine silence the cop and one of their old boys in tonight's action? Which also sees the House of Valverde put to the test by Antonio Conte's in-form Inter Milan. Well, let me introduce tonight's guest. It was going to be Rafa Honigstein, I have to say, but he is indisposed, and who better? This says a lot about our depth in strength and depth in terms of our squad than Andy Brassel, European expert, to come off the bench. Andy, great to have you with us. Thanks very much for filling in at the last minute, and you're going to be busy tonight because let's get straight into the Champions League action, which really dominates our agenda. As far as the results last night, it was almost unthinkable, wasn't it, for Real Madrid, trailing by 2, but somehow they came back in a bizarre match in Spain. Elsewhere, Shakhtar doing it to Atalanta in a way that Atalanta so often do it themselves, scoring late on in the piece. PSG just by 1 goal, Bayern Munich by 5 against Spurs. We'll talk about that very shortly. Olympiacos roundly beaten, Zagreb going down to Manchester City. Juventus comfortably downing disappointing Leverkusen, and Atletico with a very good 3 points at Moscow for them. Right, let's get straight into the big talking point of the night though, and that is the one that just had us absolutely bemused, amazed, whichever way you want to look at it. Spurs greatest ever humbling at home in any competition, 7 goals conceded there, but it was all about the guy who did it with those 4 second half goals, Serge Gnabry, former gunner of course. Surge and destroy, bringing out the very best in the newspapers. But I like what social media did with this one. This was the man himself reminding everybody about his past affiliation, as if Spurs fans needed any reminding of that. Then, of course, the fact that he became the first player to score 4 goals in a Champions League game since Cristiano Ronaldo did it against Malmo in 2015. He's keeping good company, is this young fella here. Tony Pulis, famously, we spoke about this in our build-up to the game, just couldn't find room for him to play Premier League football at West Brom, didn't feel that he was ready. And, of course, people jumped on that very, very quickly indeed. One last one for you here, and this, of course, rubs it in for Spain. And this was everybody pointing out that he's got as many goals at that stadium as Harry Kane has. Right, okay, there we are then. So one more headline for you and then we'll get Andy's take on this one. Meanwhile, back in Germany, how about this one? Bayern absolutely taking apart Spurs, deconstructing, demolishing, whichever way you want to translate that. That is the way that result was seen there. Okay, let's get Andy's take on this one straight away. Andy, I'm not saying we saw it coming. I suspect many people felt the Spurs might be a little bit vulnerable, but wow, what happened there?
Well, it all fell apart very quickly after half-time, didn't it, John? I mean, the thing is, when you've got a result like that, it's very, very hard to put the match and what actually happened in it into context. And the fact is, Spurs started brilliantly. They were fantastic, I thought, especially for the first half hour. And then it just came to pieces, especially either side of half-time. I think conceding that goal to Lewandowski on the brink of half-time was absolutely crucial. And then they took leave of their defensive responsibility in the second half. I mean, to put this into some sort of reasonable perspective, and I know it's hard when Spurs fans are hurting so much, when Bayern and their fans are celebrating so much. But if you look at the statistics, the expected goals XG for Bayern, 1.27. That means
Andy, we got that now. We've got that now. Let's do that right now and let's continue this, because the point you're absolutely correctly making is about how ruthless this was. Let's look at the match stats first, and they will tell us that actually Spurs have more corners. No, I don't know how much store we set by that. The possession wasn't that different shots-wise. It was this ruthlessness. Now look at Bayern Munich. Shots on target, 10. They scored with 7 of them. And now XG, expected goals, is the metric that Andy was rightly leading us to. This is truly bizarre. Now this was the great Duncan Alexander, who you see on the show quite often, Oily Sailor, pointing out that actually recently Bayern have been very good at this. Look at the numbers in this top row. Expected goals, 1.36. The actual goals, 7. The differential between them, 5.64. That is bizarre. That is truly unusual. That just doesn't happen. Spurs were expected to score more goals from the chances in that game. One last thing before we get to Andy on this one, and that's Pochettino himself. Just saying, hang on a minute, these things happen in football. This was Mauricio Pochettino saying, look, every single touch went in. We're disappointed. We have to stay together, etc., etc., etc. Right, Andy, that's the thing, isn't it? What struck me from Gnabry to Lewandowski was the unerring accuracy and power and just sheer ruthlessness of the finishing. I haven't seen anything like that for a long time.
Yeah, that's right, John, and nor have Bayern in general. And it's something that they've been waiting a very long time for. I know you watch a lot of Bundesliga, and I think the notable thing, I don't know what you think, but certainly I think about Bayern this season, is how they managed to dominate but not put teams away. Their best performance of the season so far was away at Leipzig, a 1-1 draw. They could have won comfortably, but didn't. And they struggled to put away Bottom Paderborn on Saturday. So this was quite unprecedented.
Yeah, let's talk about the lad Gnabry though, because obviously, and it's interesting, you know, on our Monday show, I was talking to John Wilkinson, you know, one of our regular pundits as we preview, and he said this guy's fantastic. Arsenal will always forever kick themselves that they let him go for so little. But even he, I think, couldn't have foreseen the quality of the finishing. Let's talk a bit about this guy. I mean, he's not a kid, he's what, 24 now, isn't he? I mean, that was special. Are we going to see more of that?
Yeah, I think we will. He's grown for Bayern and for Germany in the last year or so. And he's needed to, because it's the time when Ribéry and Robben have faded from view. The fact that Kingsley Coman has come to fitness has really helped Bayern at the start of this season as well. But Gnabry has worked so hard on his game. And a big figure in this, Julian Nagelsmann at Hoffenheim, really brought him onto a different level. I
also feel, Andy, that the other big figure is Coutinho. You know, I think we're going to see some fun stuff, aren't we?
Maybe. I wonder if what Coutinho might do the most is inspire Gnabry and Coman to continue their undroppable form. Because as a front three in the biggest matches, I don't think you can include Coutinho as well. I'm not sure that's a long-term plan.
Yeah, okay, fine. Let's have a look at the feedback, see what you guys made of all this one here. Let's start off with our Facebook page earlier on. Eric Lim, another one of those stories where players go overseas and become better players. Spurs look tired at the end. Lack of depth in fullbacks is telling. Tell us about that. Don't forget, these are the guys who probably run as much as any midfielders or more. Yeah, they really, particularly right back, they really are short in that right back position, aren't they? Gunnar, Spurs had 8 shots on target, scored 2. Yeah, we just made that point about how ruthless they were. You felt that it showed that Winks isn't good enough to play against the really big teams. I think Winks had been good at times, but you were right. He was at fault a couple of times there. Out of form, Dele Alli. Where is Dele Alli going? I don't know. You said there'll be questions about Pochettino's ability as a manager after this. This is an interesting one now, Andy, because you know, you look at AVB, a 5-0 did for him. You know, you look at other managers, you're never going to survive that. However, I didn't feel that with Pochettino. I feel there are problems at Spurs, and clearly there is talk about him being linked with other clubs. But I don't feel that's a result that's going to see off a manager.
I agree. Well, it might be a result that sees off other managers, but it's not going to see off Mauricio Pochettino because he has an enormous amount of credit in the bank. I guess the real question is, do he and Spurs have the appetite for the reinvention that appears to be required? It was meant to be all smooth sailing into the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that there are issues, that there's a need to move on after what happened in the Champions League final, and maybe that was the end of an era rather than the next step with this same team.
Okay, a little bit more feedback. This is just coming during the course of the show here. Serge Gnabry was always a budding star. He needed some persistence. Wenger was already seeing his tenure end and wanted one last hurrah by buying marquee players. That's what you think, ignoring his philosophy of nurturing talent. The price of letting him go was not only paid by Spurs yesterday, but Arsenal as well. That's a very wise opinion from you there, Oja. Thank you very much. And thanks to everybody who's been writing and keep them coming in. We're going to round up the rest of what happened last night in the Champions League and also look forward to some really compelling action tonight, not least at Anfield. That's next. Welcome back to Champions League all the way so far tonight, and we'll continue that theme. Just have a quick look again at those matches from last night in terms of the results. Match day 2, and well, we've been through those scores already. Let's pick out one or two of the stories, and in particular the headlines that came out of there. Let's start off with Manchester City, who, unlike Spurs, did come away with 3 points. A very comfortable victory. 2-0. I mean, there's a narrative out there that Sterling spared their blushes or what have you. It struck me that they were always well in control of that game. Sorare, as in Raheem, so good. To save the night for Pep, no, I don't think so. I think they were all right in that game, to be honest with you. Real Madrid were staring into the abyss. They were. Two of the most clumsy goals I've ever seen scored by a striker, but they went in nonetheless, got them in all sorts of trouble before they came back. And I don't know, I thought there might have been an offside on one of their goals, but as it was, they just about managed to pull back with a draw there. Casemiro, it was, of course, to the rescue for them there. 2-2 in that game. Right, let's get Andy Brassell's thoughts. Andy's with us. Let's start with that one. I'm not going to talk about City with you. I want to talk about Real Madrid there. You know what? I didn't exactly get the sense that Madrid brushed them aside in the second half. I still think they weren't at their very best, were they?
No, they weren't. And Zinedine Zidane said before last season ended that his aim for this season was to win La Liga above and beyond the Champions League. I don't think he meant that they should throw the Champions League away in order to concentrate on La Liga. And it was a really poor performance. They gave away the ball in their own half so much. Club Brugge were very well organised under their fantastic new coach, Philippe Clement. And it's strange. They, like Slavia Prague in the last round at Inter, will be leaving happy with a draw because that would have delighted them at the beginning, but disappointed that they didn't manage to see it out.
Okay, fine. Let's move on to the fixtures for tonight, because I think there's one or two really compelling stories that I want to get into here. So if we work our way through those, in particular, I think we're going to focus on Liverpool against Salzburg. Obviously, Liverpool looking to get themselves up and running after disappointments in Europe away from home, not for the first time for them. And Barcelona against Inter, that one absolutely leaps at you. So Chelsea needing to put their Valencia disappointment behind them as they travel to Lille. Look, wherever you look, there are engaging games, and Andy will pick out one or two for us as well. But I'm going to zoom in on Liverpool right now and get into a game that promises so much. They're up against the Salzburg team, which is scoring ridiculous numbers of goals, absolutely crazy numbers of goals here. And so much so that Jurgen Klopp has been talking about the fact that he needs another great European night at Anfield. The Roar can silence Salzburg attack. He knows all about the way they play their football. Let's have a little look, shall we, at some of the stats from this amazing side here. Jesse Marsch's team averaging more than 4.5 goals per game this season. That's 55 in 12 games, and we're going to talk about one of the reasons for that in just a moment, because obviously we've spoken about this guy before, Alf-Inge Haaland's son, Erling Braut Haaland, a goal-scoring machine, 17 goals in 10 games, but he has been sick. He's been missing for the last couple of games. So I just quickly want to get into that chat first now, Andy. This is the fun thing, isn't it? This is Salzburg under an exciting coach, an American coaching in Champions League football, and everyone, I think, neutral or not, has to be looking forward to this, right?
Yeah, I think they do. And I think especially because of the result of Liverpool's first game in Napoli. I thought they actually played better than they did in Napoli in last year's group stages, but nevertheless they didn't get the result they wanted. And this means that Liverpool have to go for this. Of course, they always do at Anfield, but the fact that they're going to be pushing so high up the pitch, and Salzburg are essentially a very counter-attacking team, with the pace of Haaland being part of it. We look at him, we think he's 6'4", he must be a big Norwegian target man. Nothing of the sort. He likes the ball in front of him, and they like to attack the pace. They have since the days of Sadio Mane. They've always been about that sort of football, Salzburg. So it's a danger for Liverpool.
Let's talk a bit about Sadio Mane. Now, as I said at the very top, the reason I mentioned the fact that Rafa Honigstein was going to join us, but is unable to do so, is I wanted to mention a lovely piece he wrote for The Athletic. If you're not subscribing to The Athletic, I'm not going to tell you to, but if you happen to, I'd suggest you read this piece. Absolutely brilliant piece here. Lederhosen, which he wore to a party once, believe it or not. Losing fat, which he never seemed to need to do, but he did all the same. And beating Bayern Munich, it absolutely thumped them in a pre-season game, I think it was. How Salzburg made Sadio Mane. It's a really wonderful read. It touches on so many things that make Sadio Mane what he is today. How much he learnt from that football club, what he learnt as a person. There's even a bit of talk about racism and how he experienced that. All sorts of things in that article. It's so relevant to so much today. But the thing is, we now know him as this player, the one who went to Southampton and then went to Liverpool, and just continues, Andy, to be truly remarkable in that he set his sights, and I remember reading this in the article, he said he wanted to win the Ballon d'Or, and when they said, whoa, slow down, son, he said, okay, well, let's win the Champions League first. He clearly has always believed, hasn't he, Sadio Mane?
Yeah, he has, and a lot of people saw his quality at Southampton when he first arrived in the Premier League as well. For me personally, I knew he was a good player, but him stepping up to the level he has been something else. And he was so overshadowed by I guess the goal scoring of Salah and the all-round game of Roberto Firmino for a long time. But there were huge parts of last season in which he really carried Liverpool, and there's no way they would have won the Champions League without him. He's been outstanding. And when you consider he's come off an African Cup of Nations, to continue that form into the start of this season has been fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at those numbers there. He really is such a key player for them. Let's have a little look at some more feedback here. Thanks very much, as ever, for getting in touch. It's your show, and we love to hear from you. Salzburg shouldn't be underestimated, says Premnath. They are actually an LFC prototype. Similar style, front foot pressing, and very aggressive. Will be a good game for the neutrals. Absolutely. It's one I'm really looking forward to. Mohamed Idris Sulaiman, another Anfield European night will emerge tonight. Firmino, Salah and Mane on target. So there you go then. Yeah, you'd probably expect Liverpool to actually fancy playing a team like this, wouldn't you really? Let's move on now to another game that has so much about it. Two huge clubs, maybe at different stages, going in different directions, I don't know. But either way, you look at Barca and Inter in this Champions League context, and it's full of headlines, this one. So I'm going to take you to Spain and Italy. So I'm going to take you to the AS publication here. Giants in need or needy giants. It's about Barcelona and Inter and the fact that they want more, whether it's from their season or generally speaking. The Corriere dello Sport coming up with this one, which is the big exam, the big examination for Inter and the big examination. This is the test. They're saying if you really are going to be what we think you could be under Conte, test yourself against Barcelona in Champions League football. And Andy, listen, that's just a couple of headlines. I think we've all got a take on this one. Who do you think wins the game?
Barcelona, quite simply. I think their desire to win the Champions League is greater, is their big thing for this year. Inter, I was in Milan last week, Inter Lazio, and it's clear that around there, the thought is Antonio Conte wants to do what he's always done and win the title in his first season. It's what he did at Chelsea, it's what he did at Juventus. That's where they feel their focus is. And of course, they have this huge match against Juventus in the Derby d'Italia on Sunday night. I think they're going to have one eye on that. And Barcelona at home, never a problem. Away may be more of a difficulty.
And just quickly, any other games that you feel we need to flag up that really should jump out at anybody, whether they're a supporter or a neutral?
Well, I think there are a lot of really interesting ones. I'm looking forward to seeing how Leipzig get on against Lyon. Lyon haven't won in 7 games. And Leipzig, of course, they're someone who we really want to see under Julian Nagelsmann in this year's Champions League. They can really take control of this group by winning the game.
Yeah, and of course they've already shown what they're made of this season domestically and in European football. Now, that's Champions League football, and that's not where you find Arsenal or Manchester United these days, and it might be a couple of days on, but the game that disappointed us so much, maybe it shouldn't have done on Monday night, is still attracting so much comment from all of you that we felt we had to address that, where they go now. That's up next. Welcome back. This coming weekend in the Premier League, Arsenal are at home to Bournemouth, and Manchester United are St James's Park to take on Newcastle United. And can you honestly say that you firmly expect either of those hitherto giants of Premier League football to win that game? Absolutely. Well, you can't really, because on the evidence of what we saw on Monday night, these sides are struggling. A 1-1 played in torrential rain that saw loads of errors and not a great deal of quality, and reinforced what most of us feared was going to be the outcome in that game. So let's see how this has moved on since then. This was the way the game was played out here. Not a great deal between them. I personally felt Manchester United, after Arsenal inexplicably sat back at 1-1, probably should have won it. Arsenal panicky in defence, and there were chances, and James was really causing all sorts of trouble. But that was it. That was the game. It was no classic. It certainly wasn't of that sort of era when Vieira and company would go at Keane and company. Nothing like that. Let's get into a little bit more about the way people have seen this one. Masterclass in mediocrity. Yeah, that was Ian Lederman there in the Daily Mail reaction there. Fine. Yeah, okay. I think most people thought it was a mediocre effort here. Let's try and dig a little bit deeper here. How the mighty have fallen. Yeah, again, shadow of their former selves. Okay, it's transitional right now. Let's get some tweets. Let's try and dig into it statistically and see if we can sort of get a sense of just where we are here. This was United, where they are, 9 points. And remember, between the two of them, they've only got as many points combined as Liverpool have this season. United's haul of 9 points from their opening 7 league games, their lowest at this stage of a top-flight campaign since 1989-90. Flat. Yeah, okay, fine. So we know that they are struggling here. United won 49 points in 28 games under Ole, too fewer than they did in their final 28 under Mourinho. Yeah, okay, we did all that stuff in the build-up to the game. Andy, let's try and move this forward. Where do you think these sides are going? When you look at that game the other day, I had very severe misgivings about Emery. I felt that the game was there for the taking at 1-1 after they'd scored, and yet somehow he got it wrong tactically. And then I looked at United, and I just felt they didn't have enough players who were United players.
Yeah, I think both of those comments are fair, John. I think if you look at Arsenal, maybe they've got the greatest room for progression. At least they had a more positive transfer window, a more rounded transfer window. The downside of that is, I agree with you. I think Emery, who's a coach who we know is having great attention to detail, doesn't appear to have it at the moment, or his players don't seem to be understanding it, because there doesn't really seem to be a clear identity and tactical plan. Now, the best thing that Solskjaer's done is say that Pogba is my central piece. They should have done that from the moment they bought him for that record fee, but they just don't have the players to go around him at the moment. It's hard to see it getting very much better in the short term. Yeah,
that's just it. Again, let's dig into a few more of the stories that have come out since then. Now, of course he targets a new striker in January, but let's just say there isn't a brilliant young striker who wants to go there or doesn't want to be cup tied or anything like that, and you end up with a Mandzukic. Say, does that really take the football club forward too much? There's that situation. There's Mandzukic being linked with them, fine. Okay, right, yeah, okay. That's been around for a while. Could have happened in the summer, didn't happen, may happen in January. This was Peter Schmeichel talking about Pogba. Andy's quite rightly spoken about Pogba. I think the problem here is I didn't feel it was a Pogba narrative the other day. I felt when United were good, he's played a couple of good passes around. He had a shot that came close to scoring, but I didn't feel he was their best player. I didn't feel he was their worst player. I just felt that he's bogged down in the general mediocrity. This is where it's going. This is The Guardian just a couple of days ago saying Massimiliano Allegri, of course, who won it all apart from Champions League with Juventus, is now learning English as he targets United job. Now, to go with a story as definitive as that, saying he targets United job, Andy, now this is getting interesting because we had the United financial results. We had Ed Woodward backing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I mean, don't snigger at that. We always do. Oh, the dreaded vote of confidence and all that. It seems as if there's a concerted front, but this story suddenly pops up. And you do have to say to yourself, if Ole can't get them anywhere near the top four, they must consider somebody who can, surely.
Yeah, he's going to be under extraordinary pressure, but I just feel that the way that Manchester United are set up structurally at the moment has set Ole Gunnar Solskjaer up to fail. I just feel that he doesn't really have the football expertise above him to support him. And I think someone like Massimiliano Allegri, who's used to working at a club like Juventus, who's very structurally strong, there's a very strong institution with a lot of experience, good operators in the transfer market, he will need some of that around him to help him adapt to the English game, however adept he is at the top level.
Yeah, I agree. It would be a difficult job. Andy, thank you very much for jumping in tonight. And as ever, absolutely love tapping into your knowledge. And when better than in the midst of a Champions League week. Enjoy yourself tonight, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you. Will do.
That's Andy Brassel signing off there. And just time for a couple of your comments here. Victor, thanks very much for getting in touch. Sacking both managers wouldn't be helping matters. Both the squads have fallen off a cliff. Hard to see them stringing a run of positive results together. They're capable of an odd win or two. I'm afraid they're already stuck in mediocrity as we see it. Prem, just quickly again, United don't really have a choice, do they? They have to stick it out with Ole and trust him. Rebuilding processes are never easy. You can make one step forward and two steps backwards. Still feel the board, players and fans are disconnected. And I really think Andy struck on that one there. Structurally, you have to say that maybe they aren't where they need to be. Now, just a little heads up for you. This weekend, we spoke about one or two of the games coming along. Of course, one that I find really compelling this weekend is going to be Liverpool taking on Leicester. That means Liverpool coming up against their former manager, Brendan Rodgers, who has been doing so much right in a job that feels so right for him. We're going to be getting into that in some detail. So get some early thoughts in. Get some feedback in on Rodgers and Liverpool and the relationship and what might happen in the game. And of course, we'll get into that as ever on our Friday.